What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaiju no Kami from the Tuko and Animation News Network here at FanExpo Denver 2023 with
Erin Rado, fantasy author.
So what is it like being an author?
It is awesome when you're writing. Your heart and soul just absolutely comes out through it. Then the business side is always the tricky part, but you muscle through it, and I love doing fan expos because you get to do the meet and greet, meet new fans, introduce new people to your work, and you just remember that you're doing it because you love it. Absolutely.
Now, did you always want to be an author, or was this something that happened later on in life?
My grandmother bought me an Adler typewriter when I was 14 years old, and I was 12 when Star Wars came out, and then Battlestar Galactica was right after that, and I would put on the soundtrack to Star Wars with my big analog plastic headphones, and I'd be typing away at that typewriter until the umpteenth hours of the morning, and my sister would get thoroughly angry because walls are thin and come in, "Are you sending coded messages to the Russians again, Erin?" And I'm like, "Huh?" And I have all of that teenage fan fiction where I totally fell in love with Richard Hatch, and all of that nonsense. And it's always matured after that, but yes, I've always been a storyteller.
So do you feel then that Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica helped influence the type of writing you do?
Well, they certainly opened me up to a whole new world that, oh my God, life is not mundane. And then D&D had just come on the scene. In fact, I have a first edition Dungeon Master's guide.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yes, I'm a little old lady. I date back a little motherfucker. And then of course, you get Tolkien coming on the scene, the books, mind you, and then the early Bakchi cartoons. And then I went to my first Renaissance Festival when I was 14. Yeah, I never quite looked back. I was the only geek in my family, and nobody ever got me. And I didn't really care.
So tell us about your books.
Sure, you betcha. I'm going to start here. This is my first one, Grey Warrior. And I'm going to move my sign a little bit, so hang on a minute. So this I've actually been tinkering on since I was 16 years old, is when I created some of these original characters. And some of the original versions of this sound like 16-year-old teen chick lit office stuff. And as I look back on it. But I kept going, and I'd always had this in the back of my mind. As I got into my 20s, that's when I started doing writers' workshops and whatnot, which is so hard to send your child out for scrutiny, but you got it. And I had one review when I was doing a writer's workshop from a wonderful gentleman. His name was Arthur Cover, and he ran one of the best speculative science fiction fantasy bookstores in the LA area called Dangerous Visions Bookstores. And when he read the first 10 pages and he gave me his critique, it felt like a velociraptor just ripping and spilling your guts out. And he was this close to being in tears. But at the end he said, "Still, you've got talent." I'm like, "Oh, dear God, really? After all that, you're giving me a ray of hope?" And he said, "Try and read more in your genre." And then I met my editor. My editor on this one is actually Pat Labruto, who was the former editor of Doubleday and Bantam and Ace Publications. He's worked with Stephen King, he's worked with Brian Herbert on the Dune books, he edited The Queen's Gambit. And I met him about 15 years ago at a writers' conference sponsored by San Diego State. And when I asked him to help me on this current version, he remembered me after 15 years.
Oh wow.
And it was just so gratifying that my work had made that much of an impression on him, even though he only had 10 pages. Okay, there we go. So this book is, I've got two guys who have got to work it out, and I don't make that easy because why on earth would I make that easy? The world is out of balance. One guy is the sword and one guy is the magic. The sword starts out very strong. The magic starts out as a drug addict. I write about messed up people who happen to live in a fantasy world. I don't take the world and create the people. I center on the people who are a product of their world. There's a moment when both of those characters come into balance because of a tragedy that occurred, and then the sword spends himself so that the magic can rise. At the end of the book, the world is still out of balance. So the problem still continues. It's just reversed. So that would give me a springboard if I ever want to continue this one. But that's Grey Warrior, so there's that one. Now this book went to Tor Publications because Pat, my editor, knows everybody in the publishing houses. And the senior editor of Tor loved this book. She wanted to buy that book so very much, but she couldn't, and her rejection was kind of a compliment as well as a challenge. She said it read too much like The Queen's Gambit, and she had to buy the next Game of Thrones. And spoiler alert for anyone who's thinking of publishing, spoiler alert for anyone who's thinking of trying to go with the traditionals, you've got to bring your A game, and it's got to be like a tentpole franchise these days. They have limited marketing budgets, even at the majors, and it's got to be something that they can sell to streaming, sell to gaming, create a franchise around it. And so you're up against your entire competition doing the same thing. So when I got that rejection, I started writing these little novellas. This is Tales of the Raven's Daughter. This is a television series set in a novel. I've got 6 little novellas here. I start with The Beast of Bask. I start then Thief of Souls, The Wizard in the Wild, Rips in the Ether, Mistress of Her Own Game, and then The Raven's Daughter. Here, my girl dies in the first 3 scenes. Because, spoiler alert, I do things differently. It turns out my girl is a realm walker. She can walk between the world below and the world above. To fill out this whole world of hers, I created a wonderful gender fluid character based on Puck from the Midsummer Night's Dream. And then the guy in my story is a former brigade captain, because you've got to have wonderful tragic characters in there. Messed up, damaged characters are absolutely best. I chose to work in short fiction on this series because, again, I call it The Witcher on Girl Power. This is a very commercially driven piece, but still really, really entertaining. And that's back over at Tor. But that's the nature of these 2.
I will say, seeing them small like this makes me think of going on the Stephen King thing, The Green Mile, when it first came out. Because that's all I thought. I was like, oh, it's like when Green Mile was in those mini books before they put the whole thing together.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll eventually put the whole thing together in one compilation?
Well, when you're writing and you want to be picked up by the traditional publishers, you got to have an eye on marketing. That's something that I leave for them, because it's a double-edged sword. You want to get out here and do all the fan cons and sell your books and get your name known, but at the same time, you've got to leave something for the publishers to sell. So I would sell these little novellas and let the publishers sell the bound collection. And then I would write a little Easter egg short story that fans can only get with that bound collection. So I won't do that, but that's what I'm offering to a major. And so you approach it a little bit from a marketing.
And now you had previously said that you wrote this to be like one season of the TV series.
Yeah. Think of it as one season with 6 episodes, and then they all tie together at the end. And it never leave your readers on a cliffhanger. That's just mean. And another mistake I think a lot of authors make, oh, I'm writing a trilogy because Tolkien wrote a trilogy, so we all have to write a trilogy. No, you don't. You write a saga. The first book goes out, and if the first book is good, then you write another and you create a saga. Don't ask a publisher to commit to 3 books. They'll never do it.
One thing I've always been frustrated with when people plan trilogies is I always feel at least the first story in a trilogy should be its own self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
Just like the original Star Wars.
Right.
Even though they were a trilogy, each movie still had its own story that ended at the end of that movie.
You're quite right.
Whereas other ones, like, oh, well, we're going to do a trilogy, so we're ending this movie to lead into the next one, where it's like, oh, so this movie's or book is basically a trailer for the next one.
You're asking people for a huge time commitment. If you're an amazing author, you might get that. Play it a little bit more safe. Give them a really good shout-out. Give them a really freaking good adventure. And then write the next one and tie them all together. So yes, all these little novellas have a beginning, a middle, and an end. My girl dies. My girl is discovering a brand new life. My girl is sent on Mission Impossible, and then that mission ends, and she is now accepting a brand new life. In the next one, I got a whodunit. The girl has to solve a little bit of a mystery. Someone's stealing souls. And then the next one, I've got knocking a few heads together. I've got a wizard on one side and a group of barbarians on the other. They're both being misused by a rogue goddess, and my girl figures that out, but she's got to get these two idiots to listen to her. This one is Gods and Monsters, because you got to have epic gods and monsters. And by the way, we are in Denver, right? And so the little Kelpie here on the cover, it's the Bronco at the Denver airport.
Oh, Lucifer.
It's Lucifer, right? I made him into a Kelpie. Yes, I did my own covers. Covers are important. Mistress of her own game. I love throwing dark psychology into my books. I love twisting up the human psyche. I don't get as twisted as I could with this series, but in this one, my girl is definitely confronting the kind of designated nemesis of the series and holding her own very well. It gets really tense. And then I wrap it all up. Each of these are their own individual stories, and this completes the arc of the series.
So this is basically season 1.
Season 1. And yes, I'm noodling on season 2.
Nice. Is there one story that you are most proud about?
I like the way they all came together, and I really like the accomplishment of working in short fiction. It's tricky. I've only got 20,000 words. That's 80 pages, 90 pages. I've got to deliver a full epic fantasy punch. We need worlds, we need characters, we need motives, we need drama and tension. Doing that in 20,000 words is not easy. You don't have time to lollygag, but you don't want to skip over anything either. So rather than one individual story, I just like the fact that the short fiction format really worked.
Now, if there was one song you could pick to describe your life, what would it be?
Golly. Why am I going? I'm going Billy Joel and what's the song? I can't remember it. I can hear it in my head, but I can't quite get it. Where it's the one he's let me take a guess on that one. I can hear it, but it's the "Don't Judge Me" or the "Get Out of My Way" or something like that. I can't remember the name of the Billy Joel song.
Do you know, Rado?
I know the song, but I don't know the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know.
It's nuts.
We're all blanking on that one. That'll be the needle in the brain for the day. You can always do. Bing. She was talking about this song, right, in post. Okay, so.
Well, what social media links can people find you and your books at?
Absolutely. I'm branded as Erin Rado Author, ERINRADO, and we've got Erin Rado Author. And I'm on all socials. So I'm most active on Insta, because whenever anybody buys a book, I take a picture of them. So I've got all these pictures of people at Ren Fairs holding up my books and all the cute costumes that they wear and everything. And then some people have also given me video reviews and whatnot. But you can find me on TikTok, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter.
Any final words for our viewers?
Write. Just keep writing. Do it. If you're a writer, you write. If you're a dancer, you dance. If you're a singer, you sing. If you're a writer, you write. Don't doubt yourself. Just freaking write it down. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just write it down. And when you're ready, put on your big girl pants or your big boy pants and be prepared for scrutiny. You've got to send it out for notes. It's the hardest thing, but you're working in the arts. This is not meant to be easy. And the best judge on Idol is always Simon Cowell. Not because he was mean, not because he was a hater, but because he was brutally honest. The beginning to Grey Warrior is not the original. The original one, I loved it, but every one of my readers hated it. Thinking, okay, I guess I better change it. Then when you're ready, you can self-publish or you can reach out to the traditionals. But make sure you have a lot of feedback before you go there. It's tough to take, but it's worth it. The rewards you reap are definitely worth the effort to put in.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. This has been really great.
And until next time, bye.